Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me. We just had an amazing event in New York, and it was like 7 or 8 hours of content, and what I am going to attempt to do right now is boil that all down into 20 minutes. And I do really enjoy the moody vibes. I was like a West Wing fan, and whenever anything like big would happen, there'd be like a storm going on outside. So I love this. This should be fun. But yes, I'm Alex. I am the CEO of Dromos Labs. Dromos is a new name, but in essence, this is the development company behind both Velodrome and Aerodrome. What are those, if you don't know? Well, Aerodrome is the second largest decentralized exchange on Ethereum and the leading exchange on Base. Velodrome is the leading exchange across the Optimism superchain. And our core belief, we were a bunch of dudes in a Discord not that many years ago, but what brought us together was this idea that shared systems should create shared value. Pretty simple idea, aligned with the values of the space. And so what we do about that is that we try to create this common infrastructure that creates uncommon value, that rewards all participants. So why did we get into this industry? You know, why are we doing all this stuff? Very simple. We think the world is coming on-chain. And I'm in probably a sympathetic room for this idea, but in case you need some data to prove it, this is on-chain adoption versus internet adoption. And the rate of growth of the on-chain economy is actually scaling up faster than the early internet did. And this has massive implications for our industry. Brian Armstrong recently predicted, what Coinbase is betting on is an order of magnitude increase in the size and scale of our industry. 10% of global GDP in the next 5 years. And this means everything that we're doing, right, is about to get a whole lot bigger, much faster than I think we expect. So let's just take one illustration of why this is important. Right now, on-chain today, we are able to deliver a better exchange transaction between US dollars and euros than even the leading banks and institutions can provide, even better than the hottest fintech startup that is basically focused just on this issue. You can get a 0.01% transfer fee. It is instant on-chain. This is not in the future. This is right now. And we are beating these legacy institutions. It's unbelievable. And why is DeFi winning? Why do these on-chain systems win? This isn't a new thing. This is just the same trend that we have seen for the last 20 years, right? Digital products and services are better than their analog counterparts. And on-chain systems are no different. This isn't just ideology. I think many of us are here out of ideology, but this is better products. So in this new on-chain era, basically you are able to distill the entire wrapper of the firm, this organizational tool, into code. And when you distill a firm into code, everybody, all the folks, the technology, labor, capital, they all simply become users of the shared system. And this totally changes the sort of value proposition of how you must organize yourself. But you have, in essence, a hyper-efficient on-chain firm capturing and redistributing value now just between users. And our thesis, and what drives us and how we've built things from first principles, is that traditional firms, businesses, what you see up there on the left, they are heavy, they are weighty, they extract a bunch of value to insiders and entrenched interests. So they're going to have trouble competing. But equally important is on-chain, we've largely just recreated the old firms, but worse. And we think on-chain firms that leak and extract value will have a ton of difficulty competing. So we think the potential of this on-chain world is maximally capturing and redistributing value. This is the only strategic moat for any sort of organization on-chain, and this is how we disrupt some of the most entrenched interests in the world. So just to talk a little bit because I think in this industry, we fundamentally misunderstood what the liquidity layer represents. So in a traditional economy, right, you have macro structures. This is the government enforcing property rights, setting the rules. One layer up from that, you have the liquidity layer. And this is essential to any economy because if you can't transact, if you can't exchange, you can't build anything on top of that. And every business, product, or service, everything we know about is built on these two essential rails. You can't make an economy work without them. And the misunderstanding on chain is that it is basically the exact same structure. The macro structures are just the chain networks, and I think we've understood that they should operate as open networks. But the next layer up, just as essential, is the liquidity network. And it's the same as with the traditional economy. Without these two building blocks, you do not get any of the cool, interesting, innovative products on top. And so far, we've treated these liquidity networks as if they're just simple marketplaces, when really they need to be designed as the open permissionless systems the same way the chains themselves are. So, more simply, the liquidity layer is as essential to the on-chain economy as the very chains themselves. And we need to build systems that align to this. So let's just do a quick history of DEXs. Some of you might have been around from the beginning, but Vitalik wrote this blog post, put it on Reddit a long time ago. He had this idea of an AMM. And this is something that basically turned this entire sophisticated order book financial technology into just code. Bancor was the first to show up, and they made this real, right? They were the first to bring it into practice. Uniswap was next, and they sort of iterated on it and brought it to further scale. But things really changed when you saw Sushi come in. See, Uniswap and everything prior was just this two-sided marketplace connecting traders to liquidity providers. Traders just want access to pools of tokens to trade. Liquidity providers just want the best reward in exchange for that service. SushiSwap changed the equation because they added a third stakeholder. That is the token. And what they did with that token is they just gave liquidity providers more than what the simple two-sided marketplace could give them. And does anybody remember what the impact of giving just a little bit more to liquidity providers was? Well, it was 50% of the category leader's market share was gone in 1 week. So that just emphasizes how essential maximally solving for each stakeholder was. We saw continued innovations, right, with Curve, where now the token wasn't just kind of a bolt-on incentive to a two-sided marketplace, but it was actually beginning to work a bit more like a network token would. It was aligning the interests of three stakeholders. It was managing, distributing value through them. This was ensured by immutable code, all that fun stuff. So this was sort of the evolution of DEXs. And it was in 2022 with Andre Croney's Solidly that we finally saw the solution to this. And we call this the DEX trilemma. Basically, you have to ensure that each three members of the group get the best experience. Traders just want the best execution on their swap. They don't care about your DEX. They don't care where their trade lands. As long as it's the best execution, they will use you. Liquidity providers just care about the rewards. And because we're treating these as networks, just like you treat Ethereum, you need operators. You need a token with utility to coordinate these things, optimize the network. And they just want the best rewards. So what we do is we have traders, and all of the revenue of the DEX go to the token operators. Operators direct a claim on the network in the form of the token to liquidity providers, and liquidity providers give better execution to traders. So this is a flywheel. And this solution to the flywheel, we think, is the ultimate solution. You cannot improve on a solution to the trilemma. And to emphasize this, there was a report done by Gauntlet. This was commissioned by the Uniswap Foundation, I believe a year or two ago. And what it basically said is if you cut rewards, if you give liquidity providers less, you get the reverse effect. Less rewards to LPs mean you're not paying me enough. I go somewhere else, which means worse trading execution for traders, which means fewer rewards are being generated by the system, which means more liquidity providers are going to leave, and you have a death spiral, a negative flywheel effect. And we think this is very, very important. So let's talk about what this MetaDEX thing is, right? How we solved these problems. I think the way to think about it is that we design it like a liquidity network, or more simply, this is an operating system, technical and economic operating system for the second most important layer of the on-chain economy. And basically, the MetaDEX did the same as all these early DEX models, right? It drawed from what worked in one and what worked in another, added new innovations, and combined it into one singular thing where the sum was much greater than the parts. Now, MetaDEXs have to do three things maximally, and this will sound very familiar because if you think about what makes Ethereum unique, it's just like this. You must distribute 100% of the value you create in the network. You can't be leaking it, you can't be giving it to private entities, you can't be doing any of this. 100% of the revenue distributed into the system. You only reward active participation. People contributing value to the network, strengthening it, get the reward proportional to what they are putting in. And in doing so, you align the incentives and outcomes of all three groups. All three groups only need to merely act in their self-interest to strengthen the overall network. And how we do this, right, what is at the core of it? The token. The token is the biggest revolution to coordination since the invention of the firm. You don't need all this complexity. This is your tool for organizing things. And the reason why we are able to capture so much value is because we direct it all into the token. That's trading fees, all current and future. That's liquidity payments, the incentives that projects will put on top of pools. This is usually leaked to third-party platforms on traditional DEXs. And then launch payments. This is money value that has been extracted by centralized exchanges for so long. If you want to go list your token, you might have to give up 10% of your supply just to get that distribution. So we have now brought together, wrapped in the form of a token, three value streams. And what we do with those three value streams is we inject it right into the active tick of liquidity. This means, in essence, just like Sushi Swap back in the day, we are able to pay liquidity providers more than fees alone. And here's the flywheel. Liquidity providers are being rewarded at the highest rate anywhere on chain, and we can, on average, pay 1.8x a fee-based exchange. Because they are getting the best reward, that's where the liquidity is, so traders are getting the best execution. Their ability to do that drives more revenue to token operators who direct more rewards, and this is a growth flywheel. And just to put the success of this, right? If you're following me in the argument so far, but I guess you could say, well, let's prove it. MetaDEXs, where they compete, capture an average of 74% of the market relative to Uniswap. And to put in context, the Dromos labs, these Velodrome, Aerodrome, they didn't raise any money. They didn't sell any tokens. They didn't do any of the traditional stuff. And this is the level of dominance over a multi-billion-dollar incumbent. It's pretty insane. But just to, if that didn't win you over, that this is a better way to do it, let's hit a few more stats. So within the last year, Aerodrome was the 5th highest revenue generating protocol in all of DeFi, behind only the chain layers in Ethereum and Solana. And by the way, today, Aerodrome just exists on Onchain, but we'll get to that in a bit. And it is the highest revenue producing decentralized exchange by a massive margin. Multiples more than Pancake and infinite times more than the category leader. But of course, we've followed all the news, so we want to give a fair shake to the proposed model update of Uniswap. And the most amazing thing is when we crunch these numbers with the implementation of the protocol fee, even assuming there's no negative flywheel effect, and we took the high end of the estimates that we found publicly, MetaDEXs would still be the top revenue generating DEXs in the entire industry, which is pretty wild to us. So we've been at this for a few years, right? We've been testing, refining the model, iterating on it. So we started to think about, in the next version, what do we do? And what we thought about was, well, we know the model works because it captures this dominant share anywhere it competes, not just against Uniswap, but any number of different competitors. And you combine that with the fact that we're only competing right now for about 21% of global EVM volumes. So the question we asked ourselves is, what happens when a right to win meets a market opportunity? And the answer is, we just announced the third version of our DEX operating system in MetaDEX03. So this is a massive upgrade over the model that is already dominating these legacy exchanges. And we are calling it simply Aero. So Velodrome and Aerodrome are coming together into this one exchange, and we are extending onto mainnet Ethereum, Circle's Arc, and we want to be the single global hub of liquidity of this on-chain economy. Let's go. All right, so there's a bunch of features I'm not going to bore you with, but major economic upgrades, increasing and capitalizing even more value into the system, a new dynamic emissions thing, the best AMM is getting some major upgrades. We have this whole interoperability stack and much more. But rather than tell you about it, right, the fact that we are 2.8xing the value we can take in, all that fun stuff, we're going to get inflation about 85% lower. And that's what it looks like in a chart. I'm just going to try to get to actually showing you what it looks like. So this is Aero. And Aero is basically designed to do three things. We want to win everything. We want to connect this network together. We want to make it the best place to trade. We want to make it the best place to earn. And we want to make it the best place to launch. So how do we do that? Well, trading sort of sucks right now. So let's say you're on mainnet Ethereum. You know, I don't know if you guys saw, Jesse's about to launch a token. You've never touched base, but you think this might be your moment. So you go put it in. Well, you don't actually see it on Uniswap, so you keep clicking around, go to an aggregator, don't see it there. You figure out it's on base. Okay, well, I got to go find a bridge. Which bridge should I use? All right, you finally get your tokens over to base to trade it. You forgot to bridge gas, so now you got to go back through the same loop again, get some gas over. By the time you get it on base, well, you missed it. The slippage is too high, it's pumped too much. Aero fixes all of this. And it does it by bringing together a bridge, a swap aggregator, a liquidity aggregator, and making the entire experience fully cross-chain. So now, if you go through that same experience, this is all you would see. Everything else happens on the back end. MetaSwaps is going to be the first cross-chain liquidity aggregator that brings all of this into a simple, streamlined design. And because we build everything in a fully on-chain, composable, and immutable way, and this is important to us because we've started to see a lot of projects, I think, abandon composability as an organizing principle. It is fully on-chain, easy to integrate, whether it's agents, other applications, aggregators. We don't care about owning the front end. We want to be the infrastructure from everybody from Coinbase to Robinhood to wallet providers to agents, et cetera. So let's talk about earning on-chain. And if you're here, I imagine we have a few folks who've done some degen activities. Well, a lot of complexity here too. So let's say you go get this token. Now you want to go participate in a system like Curve. And Curve was my entry to DeFi. I loved this. But you would have to go one place. But if you look at that, you don't want to lock for 4 years. You'd have to go another place. And they take some fees out. But then if you want it automated, you just want to earn yield each week, you'd have to go to another place. If you want to check on what is happening, you'd have to open some more tabs. So maybe you say, you know what, VE tokenomics is too complicated. Just give me something simple, like Uniswap. Well, you go to Uniswap and you see some good options, but you realize to see the boosted yields, the incentives elsewhere, you have to go to another platform and another platform, and then you keep going. And we just want to make this dead simple. So this is why Aero is going to be the best place to earn. Basically, everything from participation in voting and operating, from providing liquidity, one-click zap in, everything's automatically managed on the back end. You can participate, you can earn in one place at the lowest fees, super simple and easy, and it makes for a great mini app experience as well. Then I think I'm getting close to time, so let's see. We're also going after the big centralized exchanges and the way in which they extract value, so launching is also not a great experience. We have Aero Launch, Aero Ignition, and for institutions, Aero Verified. Everything comes together in this single token in Aero, and this is how big the total addressable market is for the exchange layer. It is the highest value generating layer in the entire on-chain economy. And our hope is to capture all of that addressable market, as well as all the products and services around it, wrap it in this token, and use it as fuel to continue to build this liquidity and infrastructure moat that we have. So this is the big goal. This is what we're after. We want to take it all and more fun stats. But last thing to highlight, it's not just us and Dromos Labs contributing to this. Our token model makes everyone equal stakeholders. We are just users of our protocol. That's how we're rewarded. We're now joined by Wonderland, one of the most prestigious development shops in DeFi, contributing to this vision. Folks like Vending Machine, Hyperlane, and of course our partners here today in Mello. And we are all contributing to this new, better future. So it will go live Q2 2026. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you very much.